Welcome all to the Pro Football Radio Podcast. This is your co-host JT with the pride and joy of Merrimack, New Hampshire, Tacoma, and the Pro Football Radio senior contributor Eric Burge with the Burge. Fellas, welcome in. Happy New Year's. How are y'all?
Happy New Year, guys.
Good. Did absolutely nothing last night. Watched House of Cards, had KFC for dinner, and watched CNN. We watched Andy Cohen and drunk ass Anderson Cooper bring in the new year. And I really only watched it just because Anderson Cooper struggles taking shots of tequila. So that's really what I watched to get through the years.
I read something about Andy Cohen trying to get Anderson Cooper to go drop acid.
Yes.
Yeah, like, what the heck?
It's like, where is the camera crew? Where is the apartment? We need this now. I don't care if it costs a Vanderbilt family member his job. I don't care. This is high water mark of 2020. Let's go.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because like the second midnight hit and it's like 2021, you get all these like people on social media posting about how it's new year, new me, this resolution, I'm going to do this year. I'm thinking to myself, you fucking idiots. Like, if you're this person today, the calendar changing is not going to change who you are. You're still going to be a shit person tomorrow.
No shit. And I'll say this much, like, and I bet, like, you guys will also agree, too. Like, watching the New Year special, like, we're in our lifetime, we're never going to see Times Square that empty, and that quiet, where they essentially had to pump in crowd noise to have it sound like people were hyped up for the ball to drop. Like, I mean, really, I have to watch Mayor de Blasio dance because there's nobody in the crowd. Like, but we're never going to see that again in our lifetime.
Let's just hope this time next year, man, that we're in good shape because I can't do another one.
I think people like underestimate 2020 ending and 2021 is going to be better. Like, I don't see this being that much better. Yeah, there's hope and it's getting better, but what we really should be looking forward to is 2022. I feel like that's when things are going to be back to normal. But I guess at this point, with everything that's gone on, any little thing that helps our mental state helps,
right? The bar
right?
is so low.
Yeah.
The bar is so low.
Yeah. I'll take any kind of improvement I can get.
Yeah. Well, listen, the one thing we're all thankful for is for the NFL. They've somehow charged on through 17 weeks, and, obviously we can nitpick about the decision here and there, but, we're thankful that they actually got through 17 weeks. So they're going to get through 17 weeks and start the playoffs in about 8 days from now. So to give you guys a quick rundown of the podcast 74 is going to consist of essentially walking through the playoff picture, and then from there we're going to preview 3 games for you guys. It's going to be Dallas versus New York, Pittsburgh versus Cleveland, and Washington versus Philadelphia. So without any further ado, you guys ready?
Let's roll.
Yes, sir.
All right. So the playoff picture, the way it stands right now in the AFC, we've got the number 1 seed essentially locked up for the Chiefs at 14-1. They've clinched home field advantage, and Patrick Mahomes is not going to be playing this week. At the number 2 seed, you got the Bills at 12-3. They've clinched the AFC East, and they own the head-to-head lead tiebreaker over the Steelers. At number 3, you got the Steelers at 12-3. They've clinched the AFC North. At number 4, 10-5. The Tennessee Titans, who own the division record tiebreaker over Indianapolis. Number 5 seed right now, you got the Dolphins at 10-5. They own the tiebreaker advantage over the other 10-5 teams. Number 6, you got the Ravens at 10-5. And then number 7, last spot, the Browns at 10-5. They are still alive. Essentially, if they win this week, they're in against the Pittsburgh Steelers. And then the outside looking in, you've got the 10-5 Colts. They can play their way into the playoffs this week as well. On the NFC side, you've got the number 1 seed Packers 12-3. They got a clear path to home field advantage. The number 2 seed, you've got the Saints at 11-4. They clinched the NFC South. Number 3, you got the Seahawks 11-4. They clinched the NFC West. Washington right now has that number 4 seed at 6-9, but there's still a lot to be essentially hashed out on the NFC, so we'll get into that in a second. Number 5, so you got the Buccaneers at 10-5. They clinched their first wild card berth since 2007. Number 6, you've got the Rams at 9-6, and the 7th seed. Right now, the Bears own it at 8-7 because they own the tiebreaker over Arizona. Outside looking in, you got the Cardinals at 8-7, who need to beat the Rams and need the Bears to lose to earn the final wild card spot. And then finally, you've got the Cowboys and Giants still in it for the NFC East. So, with that being said, that's a lot to get through. But what are you guys looking for the most? Like, what's some of the key matchups that you guys are looking for this week, man?
I mean, I'm personally looking forward to seeing how this dumpster fire of an NFC East turns out. Seeing these records. Are we going to get a 6-10 record team in the playoffs to get smoked in the first round? It's great TV to see that a division is this bad and a team with a record as bad as the Patriots could be in the playoffs winning their division.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just to piggyback off that. I'm really just keeping an eye out for the NFC East. I personally think Washington is going to wrap up that division based on the injuries that the Eagles have, and we'll get to that in our game breakdown. But, I mean, even during the Buccaneers Lions game last week, where Tom Brady just aired it out, filled the stat sheet, and rightfully so. I mean, you should fill the stat sheet against that defense for the Detroit Lions. We saw this a little bit where this offense for the Buccaneers can get rattled a bit when facing pressure up front, and I think Washington would be able to generate that kind of pressure if the playoffs were to start today. It would be Tampa going up to FedEx Field in Maryland to play, and I tweeted this during the game. I think Washington might surprise some people and maybe win that game just based on the defense for Washington. So I'm hoping Washington wins. I kind of want that matchup and go from there.
Yeah, listen, that's all great, and we'll get all to those games in a second. But I think that the bigger question I want to ask you guys is this NFC East situation, which for some reason it bugs me quite a bit that a team that bad is going to get in, and I don't know if there's any way around that. I don't know if the NFL is actually going to change a rule where a team that's under 500, even if they win the division, gets into the playoffs. I don't know if that's something that's feasible. But what's your thoughts on having a team that bad? I mean, the whole NFC East is dumpster fire, right? I mean, there's a 6-9 team right now. I mean, 6-10 could win this. 7-9 is probably going to win this. So what's your thoughts on essentially moving forward, and if the NFL is actually going to try to do something about this, or going to leave it as is?
I think they're just going to leave it as is. I mean, this isn't the first time we've seen something like this. I know the Carolina Panthers, they weren't below 500, but they were pretty goddamn close. And there was a year prior to that as well too, where there was a suboptimal, let's just say, division winner. We almost saw this last year with the NFC East. Unless they're going to just realign the whole division, or divisions, I should say, or just change the format, which I don't think they're going to do. It's going to be, this is what we're going to have to deal with from time to time, of playoffs below 500 getting into the big games, or teams below 500 getting into the playoffs, I should say.
No, I agree with you there. I think they're going to leave it the same. And, if you're going to try to make a rule to keep like a bad record like that out, despite winning their divisions, you might as well get rid of the divisions altogether.
Right. Just turn to the NBA.
You have your goal is to win your division when you're in the regular season. That's the first step. You want to win your division to get into the playoffs. And if your division sucks, that's not necessarily that team's fault. I mean, it just the way it is. We like you said, Puma, we see this from time to time. It seems like almost every year there's one division that is just far below the rest in terms of, deciding the top team in that division. And, I personally like it. I mean, it'd be a great story if the team that bad goes on a deep run and gets to the Super Bowl. I think it'd be a great story. It just shows that you just got to play to get in the playoffs, and then anything can happen.
I mean, we saw that. I think that other team, it was the Seahawks.
Yeah,
they were facing the Saints.
Yeah.
And, everyone was saying, and we didn't have a podcast then, but I bet if we had a microphone in front of our face then, we would have said the same thing. Like, this team doesn't belong in the playoffs. And they ran roughshod on the Saints. So, teams that win the division below 500 records are pretty close to it. I think they have they're 2-0 or 3-0 in the first round of the division. Like, that's kind of what makes the playoffs is once you get into the dance, you have a shot at going on a deep run and possibly making it to the Super Bowl. Anything can happen in the playoffs.
You got to get through your division. You play them 6 times throughout the season, and you get through your division. That's enough to get to the playoffs, in my opinion.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's move on to the game previews. Let's start with the NFC East. The 1 p.m. slot, you got the Dallas Cowboys at 6-9 taking on the New York Giants at 5-10. And essentially, whoever wins this game, and whoever wins this game, let's say Washington loses to Philadelphia at 8:20 p.m. On Sunday night, the winner of this game will get into the playoffs. So with that being said, Puma, who do you got win this game?
I kind of like the Giants in this game. I just like the defense a bit more than the Dallas Cowboys. The Cowboys are coming off of a 37-17 drubbing of the Philadelphia Eagles that ended the Eagles' playoff chances. Andy Dalton, 22 of 30, 377 yards, 3 touchdowns and 1 interception. Zeke had 105 yards while pushing through a calf injury. But this defense for the New York Giants, I think is going to kind of carry them through the day. The Dallas defense, they have been playing better as of late. But overall in the season, they're 11th against the rush, 16th against the pass, 13th in total defense. But I going up to MetLife, it's going to be like today in New England, which is cold and dreary and somewhat miserable. I kind of like the Giants in this game. But the issue and the big wild card for the Giants side of the football is Daniel Jones. He hasn't looked the same coming off of the ankle injury / hamstring issue. He tried to push through it with the Arizona Cardinals game a few weeks ago, and he just looked he couldn't do what played to his strength, which is be mobile, move in the pocket, and go from there. And he even came out earlier this week saying that he's going to be in the pocket until he feels 100% with his hamstring and his ankle. So that's going to be, a little bit of a ball hawking opportunity for this resurgent Dallas Cowboy defense. But I think the Giants are going to lean on the run. I think you're going to see more of Alfred Morris and Wayne Gallman in this game, keeping it on the ground, maybe getting Evan Ingram involved with some tight end screens, have him line up wide. But Giants are 1.5-point dogs at the moment. The over-under is at 44.5. I like the Giants. I kind of like the over a little bit in this game, but not by much.
Bert, you got?
No, I'm right there with you, Puma. I like the Giants in this game as well. I like what they bring on the defensive side of the ball, and you're kind of echoing like all my thoughts on this game. The wild card is going to be Daniel Jones. How is he going to look? How's that hamstring going to feel going Sunday afternoon? And Dallas's defense, has had its difficulty with the run this year too. I like that Wayne Gallman and Alfred Morris are going to be out there running the ball. They're not going to try to put Daniel Jones in any situation where he's going to have to, test that hamstring out. They're going to try to protect him as much as possible. And, despite the run, the last 3 games that the Cowboys have had, I don't have any faith in Andy Dalton and, Mike McCarthy to get it done, especially against a good defense. Yeah, I like the Giants in this one. Give them to me.
Yeah, so I see it the other way around, man. I think the Cowboys are going to win this game. And I totally understand what you guys are saying about the Cowboys defense looking absolutely horrid. It's one of those things where if they get into the playoffs and they matched up with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, it's going to be pretty brutal what Tom Brady's going to do to that defense because they can't get any pressure on him at all. But the wild card, like you guys mentioned, is Daniel Jones, and I have little to no respect for Daniel Jones. The fact that he's hurt is probably going to negate some of his running ability, and if you force the guy to stay in the pocket, he is known to make critical, turnovers, especially with the fumbles. He seems to not have an internal clock where, the linemen are coming, defensive line people are coming and trying to get the ball out of his hands. He seems to hold on to the ball way too long, and if he's not, at 100% and he's hobbled, then he's not going to be able to get out of the pocket. So the way I see it is the Cowboys' offense has been looking good the last 3 weeks. They've been putting up some points. Obviously, the Eagles aren't the best, but I think trending wise, I think the Cowboys are trending better than the Giants at this moment. And I'll take Andy Dalton and the Cowboys to win this game, man. And the way I see it, and this is a little bit of a preview down the road, I think Washington is going to lose to Philadelphia, even though Philadelphia is ravaged. And I think somehow the Cowboys sneak in, which is going to be a hell of a story with the Cowboys getting in at, what is it going to be, like 7-9? So that'll be interesting to see.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I just can't wait to see Skip Bayless trying to do everybody
Oh,
dance.
my
now.
God.
The only time I see that is when you send it to me, Jay, because I refuse to follow the guy anymore. So I don't need his bullshit on my timeline. I'm good.
Yeah.
New year, new me. I don't need Skip.
Listen, most of America hates Skip Bayless, but I like him. I have no issues with him. But those dancing moves, those are cringeworthy. I'm like, oh yikes, I can't watch this, man. So that's why whenever it happens, I send it to everybody I know just to see what their reaction is. It's like, if I've got to see this, then you got to see this as well, okay?
But you choose to see it, Jay. You don't have to. You don't
Yeah,
have
but
to watch it.
yeah, I mean, it's cringe, but for me, it's like, all right, whatever. I mean, I like the guy, so for me, it's not that big of an issue. So it's like, all right, it's 2 seconds of bad cringe Instagram, and then I just send this to people I know.
Yeah, you should tell him to crawl back under the bridge there, Puma, because he's trying to get under your skin with
Yeah,
that.
no shit. Shit.
What, that I like Skip Bayless? What's wrong with that?
Well, Puma hates him.
Well, so what? I mean, Puma hates a lot of things that I like. It is what it is. I don't get offended.
Welcome to our relationship, Burge. It's great.
Yeah.
Grumpy old men, but we're not old yet.
Getting there.
Yeah, no shit.
All right, let's move on to the second game we're going to preview for you guys. We've got the Myles Garrett versus Mason Rudolph Part 2 ding matchup this week. We've got the 12-3 Pittsburgh Steelers facing off against the Cleveland Browns at 10-5, 1 p.m. on Sunday. And it's very simple for the Browns. If they win, they're in. If they lose, they're probably out. They are out. And on top of that, the main factor here is Ben Roethlisberger is getting a bye week. He's not going to be playing for the Pittsburgh Steelers. So with all that being said, Puma, he got to win this game.
I have Cleveland winning this game, and it's not even just Big Ben getting the rest. Marquise Pouncey's going to be sitting. T.J. Watt's going to be sitting. Cam Hayward's going to be sitting. And, a lot of people were saying on social media, well, why isn't Joe Hayden sitting? Like, they're going to rotate people in and out of this lineup on Sunday to get people the adequate rest. And let's be honest, Big Ben, it probably deserves the rest at this point to go into the playoffs and play on Wild Card Weekend. They already locked up the AFC North. They have nothing to play for. Cleveland, they should have the whole band back together. Yep. Last week, they went up against the Jets and basically had 0 wide receivers that were normal starters because of close contact tracing for, I believe it was a player that tested positive for COVID. But Jarvis Landry should be back. Higgins should be back. And I think Donovan Peoples-Jones should be back as well, too. It's a must-win game. And I think Cleveland is going to rise up to the occasion. They're going to make the playoffs for the first time in like 20-plus years. I like what Kevin Stefanski has done. And I think we're going to see a lot more of Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt on the ground, especially if they start resting starters as the game goes on. Give me Cleveland to win outright. The spread right now is Cleveland minus 9.5 points. I think Cleveland wins, but I think Pittsburgh covers. The backdoor cover is wide open at this point. So if you're going to bet this game, I kind of lean a little bit more towards Pittsburgh, but I'm not touching this game personally.
Yeah. And before you go, Burge, let me throw a little stat out there. Just 3 years ago is when the Browns went 0-16, right?
Yep.
And now they're in a position to potentially clinch their first playoff appearance in 18 years. So it just goes to show you just the swings of emotion that are happening in Cleveland right now. I wanted to throw that out there before you went, Bert. So go for it.
Yeah, no problem. I like Cleveland to win this game too. They're actually playing for something here. They're going to have all their receivers back, and checking their injury report, didn't look like they were losing really anybody huge in this game. And then the fact that Roethlisberger's not playing, Pouncey's not playing. It looks like Deontay Johnson has an illness, didn't practice today either. So that's another piece there. They're probably not going to push anybody. But at the same time, it's not going to surprise me if Mason Rudolph is able to lead them to win this game, just because the Browns are the Browns. So I like Cleveland to win the game because, like I said, they're playing for something. They're playing for their season. But like Puma, if I was going to bet this game, I'm taking the Steelers plus the 9 points.
Yeah. And listen, Cleveland had a chance to essentially get their ticket punched to the playoffs, but they blew a game against the Jets. And obviously we understand that there was no wide receivers out there for the Browns because of COVID-19 protocols. Mm-hmm. But let's not, bend the truth here. They were still in a position to win the game at the end.
Yep.
At the end of the day, they lost that game not because they didn't have wide receivers to throw to. They lost that game because Baker Mayfield fumbled with the game on the line on the last drive. So that's something to take into account. Now, I do think Cleveland. Go ahead.
Real quick, I was just going to say, I know Baker fumbled, but some of that's also on Stefanski. You have no wide receivers out there, and you have Baker throwing the ball 52 times.
Yeah. But listen,
That's a two-way street.
But that's one of the knocks on Baker Mayfield. It seems like he needs everything to be perfect for him to succeed. He's got to have the run game, to a T, providing him 5 yards per run, and they got to have 100 yards, and the wide receivers got to be there. Like, it's not going to be always like that, right? You're going to have to essentially carry the team at some point, and it seems like he can't at the moment. So we'll see how it pans out. But now I do think Cleveland is going to win this game. They're going to rise to the occasion, and I do think they're going to win just because Big Ben's not playing. I don't have much faith in Mason Rudolph. If I had to guess, it's gonna be a little chippy between Mason Rudolph and Myles Garrett. I want to see, obviously, Myles Garrett is gonna be under a microscope. He's not gonna be able to go out there and do something, maliciously bad. But I want to see what kind of extra gusto he puts on some of those tackles on Mason Rudolph if he gets to the backfield. But listen, I think Cleveland's gonna win this game. I think they're gonna come out. They're gonna run the ball effectively. They have the wide receivers back. They're gonna do a lot of play action like they normally do with Baker, and I do think they're gonna be able to walk away with a win in this game and get their first playoff berth in 18 years.
Sweet. And another thing I forgot to mention real quick, and this kind of goes into the camp of the Browns are going to find a way to be the Cleveland Browns. They haven't been able to practice at all this week. Everything was done through virtual Zoom meetings because I believe there was another player on the practice squad that tested positive. And out of abundance of caution, they shut everything down. I think even today, Friday, New Year's Day. So who knows if they're even able to get a walkthrough in at this point. Well,
listen, I think that's a great point you bring up, and I have it on my notes here because as the conversation was going to evolve, I was going to bring that up. But it was a little bit on the scary side to see the Cleveland Browns not practicing and the facility being shut down, and the fact they actually opened it up today and they can actually go through and do some of their meetings in person. It's great, and I wonder what was going to happen. I was thinking, is the NFL going to cancel this game, or are they going to move it back a day? Like, what's going to happen here? Because if you move back a day and you play on Monday night, then you're in that window where it's like, all right, you want to give every team, a full 6 days off or whatever it is. So I was, looks like the NFL kind of dodged a bullet here to see what they were going to do if Myles Garrett couldn't, if the Cleveland Browns couldn't practice this week.
Hell, Roger Goodell probably called, Brea, Ohio and said, listen, you didn't have any more positive tests today. You are going to have a walkthrough, even though maybe somebody did test positive. And that's just tinfoil hat. That's just banter at this point. But, I mean, it's so late in the game to try to have a Week 18 at this point, and especially with what they did to the Denver Broncos and that whole situation. Like, they probably would have made Cleveland go out there with a wide receiver quarterback at this point. And, hell, we saw Jarvis Landry have a perfect quarterback rating so far this year. So why not?
Yeah. Yep. So are you guys looking out for that Myles Garrett versus Mason Rudolph matchup? Because I am. I mean, I want to see just how many helmet swings we get.
Not really.
I think
Stefanski,
I'm kidding.
Stefanski had Garrett listed as a captain for tomorrow. I think it's really just playing to the media at this point. It's whatever. It's going to be.
They're going to be on their best behavior.
They're going to be on their best behavior. They're going to be under a microscope. Nobody wants unsportsmanlike conduct penalties, especially when Cleveland, in theory, is in the driver's seat against backups. Like, you have to win this game. There is no excuse at this point.
Both teams are going to the playoffs. They're not going to risk any kind of supplemental discipline.
Right.
They're gonna just play the game. Pittsburgh just wants to get out of there healthy at this point. So, I don't see it going anywhere.
Yeah, do you guys remember that hit? Because I was actually traveling for work and I was in Florida, and I remember I had a long day. It was travel, meetings, like dinner, and I was like, all right, I don't want to watch the rest of this game. I think Cleveland, is going to end up. I'm sorry, the Steelers are going to end up winning this, and let me go ahead and go to sleep. I woke up the next day and I could not believe what I saw. Like, I was absolutely floored at seeing somebody essentially swing a helmet at somebody else's head.
Never seen that before ever.
No.
Not even Bill Romanowski was that bad. and that is saying something.
All right, final game.
Real quick before you get to the next game, just came out from Adam Schefter. Alvin Kamara for the Saints tested positive for COVID. So now, what is going to happen with that? With the Saints trying to fight for that first round bye.
I mean, personally, I'm not that worried. As harsh or naive as it sounds, I'm in an X's and O's standpoint. I'm not that worried if Kamara's not able to go this week. You have Latavius Murray. I was expecting Latavius Murray to pick up a lot of the workload this week because he came off the injury report. He is a capable running back in the right spot and filling in a relief position. The real question is going to be what happens the following week if they don't get that first round playoff spot. they don't get that bye. Like, what are they going to do without Kamara in the wild card weekend? That is something I would keep an eye on. But I mean, for this week, Latavius Murray's capable, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, and then finally, we've got the 6-9 Washington football team against the Philadelphia Eagles at 4-10-1. This is the 8:20 p.m. game, the night game, and essentially it's very simple for the Washington football team. They win and they're in. With that being said, Puma, who do you got win this game? Now, before I get to that, looks like there's still some, is Alex Smith going to be starting for the Washington football team? Or is that still up in the air?
That's still up in the air. He's on the injury report as questionable, along with Terry McLaurin and Antonio Gibson. Ron Rivera, he's come out this week and said that Alex Smith doesn't have to get a full practice in. It's really going to come down to how does he feel the following day after individual drills. Like, is he sore? Does he have swelling? Like, things along those lines. I bet this game. I got the Washington football team as 1.5 point favorites, but that line quickly moved along with the reports that not only are the Eagles basically sitting all of their starters, but there were positive reports coming out that Alex Smith may start. And, let's be honest, the drop-off to Taylor Heineke compared to Dwayne Haskins when he got released wasn't that much. So, I mean, they could lean on this defense. I anticipate Antonio Gibson and Terry McLaurin are going to try to grind it out and win this game to go into the playoffs. But with all that being said, Philadelphia is not starting anybody. Jalen Hurts is really the only starter that's going. Miles Sanders is out. Dallas Goedert is out. Fletcher Cox is out. Barnett is out. Deshaun Jackson is out. Like, they have nothing to play for. And, even if they had these guys going, they would have been making business decisions for the rest of the offseason, let's just say. So I think Washington rolls in this game. This defensive front for the football team is legit. Chase Young is a stud, and Montez Sweat is a stud in his own right as well too. Jalen Hurts has had an issue of fumbles in a small sample size this season. And I think they can get after the quarterback, especially with this offensive line. So give me the Washington football team right now. If you were to bet them, they're 3.5 point favorites. The over/under is at 44. I like the under in this game, and I like Washington laying the points right now.
What you got?
Dude, Puma, I don't think you and I have ever agreed so much on this podcast.
I don't think so either. I think we've actually agreed more than Jay and I.
Oh, my goodness, man. No, I love what the Washington football team is doing on defense this year. Like you said, Sweat and Chase Young are absolute beasts. Philly's not playing anybody. I'll make this short. I agree with you. I like the under in this game. I think that the points are going to be controlled, knowing what we know about the Eagles benching players and, the state of the injuries on the offensive side of the ball for the football team. I like the under, and I'll take the points with Washington in this one.
Listen, I think the Eagles are going to win this game, and hear me out. I think the quarterback position in Washington, obviously it's really, really bad right now, but I think Ron Rivera has to start, what's his name, Heineken? Is that his name?
Well, if you're going to say it like Chase Young, it's Heineken! Heineken!
Now, the calf strain that Alex Smith has, it's not just a normal calf strain. That calf strain is due in part because I think a part of his calf was removed for that leg surgery he had, right? So he's already at a disadvantage, and, God knows how long he can hold up. So I think you got to start Heineke here because I think he gives you a really good shot at winning. Now, on the other side, the defense for the Washington football team is absolutely phenomenal, man. That front seven, you know how much I love Chase Young. The guy's an absolute stud, but they can really cause some issues. I'm just going with my heart here, and I just think that Jalen Hurts is a baller. I like everything I've seen out of him. I mean, yeah, he had a couple turnovers against the Cowboys the other night. Didn't look the best, but for the most part, I've been impressed with what I've seen out of him. And I'm just going to go with my heart here, man. Like, I don't have any other rhyme or reason besides the fact that I like Jalen Hurts and the quarterback situation the Eagles have over the quarterback situation the Washington football team has at the moment.
I'll say this about the Washington football team quarterback situation real quick. He was really close to starting last week against Carolina. Mm-hmm. If he wasn't so sore walking into that building, he would have started against Dwayne Haskins over Dwayne Haskins. And me personally, I'm not even saying this as a bettor that held that ticket. Dwayne Haskins was just absolutely brutal, and they had to get away from their game plan to try to beat the Carolina Panthers. I think he is going to be a go this weekend, even if he is a bit sore. With everything on the line, their season on life support, winning you're in, I think you're going to see all these people that are questionable starting. And even if Terry McLaurin's out there on one leg just as a decoy, and that opens up Logan Thomas a bit more, or you get J.D. McKissick out of the backfield a bit more, like what they did against the Pittsburgh Steelers, I think that is going to be the key to success in this game, is being smart with the football, maybe playing the field position game a little bit more. And Alex Smith, for all of his knocks as being a game manager, is smart with the football. And I think that is going to be a key in this game to beat the Eagles.
Yeah. And I think we might have lost Burge here, but I think we're close to the end of the podcast anyway. So, Puma, I don't have much else to say. Do you want to wrap this up and we'll call it a day?
Yeah, the only thing I got real quick, just betting wise, I personally just have these couple of games on the docket for betting. Like I said earlier, I got the Giants plus
Bird, you back?
1.5.
Yep. Yeah, I'm here.
There he is.
Sweet.
Yeah, so not to cut you off there, Puma, but Bird, we're just moving forward. We're ending the podcast. Essentially, Puma's going to give us some of his favorites betting lines this weekend. We're going to call it a day.
Sounds good.
Sweet. Giants, like I said earlier, I got the Giants at 1.5 points, point underdogs. I also put money down on the money line versus the Dallas Cowboys. Washington football team, I got them at 1.5 point favorites. That's now up to 3.5. Wouldn't be surprised if that moves up a bit more. And I also took the under in the football team's game against the Eagles. I got it at 43.5. It moved up to 44, I believe. I still like the under in this game. The Chicago Bears on the road against Green Bay, winning you're in. I have the Chicago Bears at least covering this game, covering the 5.5 points. I wouldn't be that surprised if maybe they squeak by with a win, just because they've been playing hot as of late. This team looks a bit better under Mitch Trubisky, which is really saying something for the state of the quarterback position in Chicago. And at the risk of starting a debate, I also took the New York Jets plus 3 points versus the New England Patriots. There hasn't been anything. There hasn't been much to see to warrant the Pats being 3-point favorites. The Jets have been playing hard the last couple of weeks. They're out of the Trevor Lawrence sweepstakes. They have really nothing to gain. They're locked in at the number 2 pick. I think they cover the 3 points. I think they actually win outright. And I did not bet this game. I thought I did, but apparently I forgot to hit submit bet. But I like the Denver Broncos plus 3 against the Vegas Raiders in Las Vegas. Jerry Jeudy had a couple of brutal drops last week. They left a lot of points in the field. I think they covered the 3 points easily against the Raiders, which had a malfunction versus my Miami Dolphins last week. So I like Denver to cover the 3, and I wouldn't be surprised if they win outright.
Puma, I am not going to pick a fight with you. I think there's a good chance the Patriots lose on Sunday against the Jets. I am emotionally getting myself ready for that loss. I'm just going to tell myself, don't overreact, Jay. You know what's going to happen going into this game. Just, if we lose, just chill out. You're emotionally ready, So I'm not going to pick a fight with you, man. There's a good chance we might lose that game.
I hope they lose that game. There's nothing good that can come from them winning it.
Oh, now you want them to lose games when we could have been losing games like 4 weeks ago, and that could help the draft stock.
It's the last game of the year. It's the last game of the year. It's the last game of the year. Who cares? Who cares? We're gonna get to see Cam Newton play his last game in New England. That's all I care about.
Amen to that, brother. I cannot see another year of that.
Nope, absolutely not.
Maybe Belichick's doing a little bit of scouting for Sam Darnold.
Ooh, hey, he was talking him up. He was talking him up this week.
Hey, he was also talking up Adam Gase.
I know.
Maybe Adam Gase is going to find his way on your coaching staff.
Hey, he might. Hey, he could be an assistant. He could be an assistant. He was a pretty good offensive coordinator with Peyton Manning.
The bar is not that high when you're coordinating with the Hall of Famer and Peyton Manning.
He essentially got Peyton Manning's coffee every morning. Like I don't buy into that. When you have a Patrick Mahomes or a Tom Brady or a Peyton Manning, I mean, it is what it is as an offensive coordinator.
So you don't buy the hype about Josh McDaniels then?
I do not. Absolutely not.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
I mean, he went away and he drafted Tim Tebow and he looked like ass in Denver.
He won a playoff game.
Oh my God! Here we fucking go. I do think there's some validity to that argument that Adam Gase might find his way to New England, because I do believe that Josh McDaniels is going to end up with that Chargers job, or another. I do believe so. Yeah. So I think we might be in for a new offensive coordinator in New England.
I won't hate it.
Yeah.
God bless you.
Yeah.
But yeah, those are my bets. Let's hopefully cash some tickets this week.
Yeah. All right, Puma, that's all I got, man. Bird, you want to get anything else off your chest before we plug it up?
I could get a lot off, but for another day.
All right. It's all you, Puma.
All right. On that note, we're getting the hell out of here so Jay can edit and watch his Buckeyes. Tonight.
Speaking of which, I am also emotionally prepared to see the Buckeyes lose this game tonight. I mean, we are nowhere near as good as we were last year, and I think it's gonna get a little ugly for the Buckeyes. So, between 8 and 12, you probably won't hear much from me because I'll be I'll be crying a little bit.
Have you calmed down your
welfare checks every hour or what?
Yeah.
You might want to do that. And listen, I know I get painted to be a homer here, but I try to be sometimes rational. I do think the Buckeyes are going to lose tonight. It's not going to be good.
Have you calmed your takes about Justin Fields in the NFL, or do you still think he's a legit top talent?
Well, Burge, if you're listening, the last 4 weeks I said that Justin Fields has dropped in my book. I think he has looked really, really bad.
Well,
just wanted to get it on record.
Well,
I started like 7 times. I started like 7 times already.
Before we get off the rails of Justin Fields, Jay, real quick to the people that are listening, and maybe they tune in real quick, or they can listen after the fact and see what your thoughts were for game preview. Like, can you give us a quick hit on the Ohio State matchup tonight? Like,
Here's the issue.
What do you have?
The issue is our defense is nowhere near as good as it was last year. That secondary is torchable. And if Trevor Lawrence had such an easy time moving the ball last year against us with Chase Young and Damon Arnett and all those NFL players on that secondary, this year it's gonna be so much more easier for him. So we can't get consistent pressure on Trevor Lawrence. The secondary is hit or miss. So I think Clemson is gonna move the ball fairly easily and put up probably 35 to 31 points on us. I think the other issue is Justin Fields has also regressed for the last 4 to 5 weeks. Like, he's become that guy that essentially holds on to the ball for way too long. He's a one-read guy. The stop and start of the season has fucked with his with play, because essentially if he's played all 8 games in a row, I do think he'll be in a better groove right now. But the fact that they stopped and start, it kind of really fucks with his play, and he holds the ball on for way too long. So I think at the end of the day, it's going to be like a 34-24 kind of win for the Clemson Tigers. And right now, Mac Jones for me is rising because he has looked really good so far in this game against the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. And if he keeps continuing this, he might play himself into a fairly high top 10 draft pick. Now, obviously, you always got to put a disclaimer out there. He's playing in Alabama. He essentially has an NFL team around him, so you can't really tell if he's that great or if it's the wide receivers that are that good or if the offensive line or blah, blah. But I do like Mac Jones, what I've seen out of him so far.
Gotcha. Well, real quick to follow up to that, and I swear to God I'm going to plug it up, but
That's all right.
if you had to rank the quarterbacks going into this draft, I mean, we saw BYU already play. Like, what do you have in the pecking order for the quarterback class?
I think I got Trevor Lawrence 1. I got Mac Jones 2. I got Zach Wilson 3. Justin Fields 4, and Kyle Trask for me with his horrific performance of 3 interceptions the other night. That was an eye opener for me, man. Now, granted, he had Kyle Pitts wasn't playing and a couple of his receivers weren't playing. I understand that as well, but he looked pretty bad. So I think the way I see it right now is that Justin Fields will be the 4th one off the board, and Mac Jones' stock is rising for me.
So Zach Wilson rose that high. So you think the evaluators are gonna brush aside the Coastal Carolina performance?
Yeah, I think so, man. I think there's this love for Zach Wilson. I think there's you're starting to hear a little bit of the negativity around Zach Wilson. It's starting to come out, so we'll see how that narrative plays out. But I do think with how bad Justin Fields has played, Zach Wilson can take advantage of that. Now, if Justin Fields goes out and lights it up tonight and wins, and he lights it up in the national championship game, then his stock's gonna rise again. He'll probably end up being in the number 2 seed after he'll be the number 2 quarterback taken after Trevor Lawrence, because if Justin Fields beats Alabama and has a good showing against Mac Jones, he'll probably be back to number 2. So last be played out in the next week and a half. But right now, if you had to ask me, I think I'll have Mac Jones number 2.
All right. Burge, you buy that kind of ranking? I know we're not in touch with college as much as Jay is, but what do you think? I know you are kind of not buying the Justin Fields stock, but would you have him as the 4th guy off the board or a little higher?
No, I would agree with that. The Kyle Trask's performance in his last game there was not strong with those interceptions, and I'm not sold on any Ohio State quarterback coming into
That's
the
the
NFL.
dumbest argument possible. That's
I
so
mean,
dumb.
they haven't produced
because
one.
I can send it back to you and be like, show me a guy from North Dakota State that's panned out in the NFL, right? I mean, at the end of the day, you have Carson Wentz who didn't pan out, but now you have Trey Lance who might be a top 5 pick in some people's eyes. So like, that's just a dumb argument. That's just when it comes to college football and college players, you've got to look at who they are. It doesn't matter where they play, what are their attributes, can they produce in the NFL, and that's bigger than anything else.
Well, they've had their Heisman winners come out and they've done nothing. So like Troy Smith comes to mind, and Terrell Pryor is another one. You know, they come out and they don't translate to the NFL, and I don't know if it's just a system that they run there or what. But
well, I can say that about 90% of the college programs in the NFL. I mean, in college football. I mean, people out of Florida, Tim Tebow was not that good in the NFL. I mean, like that's just easy and it's lazy. You've got to look at each player. You've got to look at each player for its attributes, man.
Well, like I said, I'm not plugged into the college game, so when I'm looking at it, I'm being lazy and looking at it from that perspective. And
well, I should admit it.
I do admit it. I don't follow college football at all. Perhaps I should start getting into it. I like focusing on the NFL. And
well, where did Garoppolo and what's his face Tony Romo come from? Eastern Illinois, is that the small school? So what? Eastern Illinois produces more talent than these other schools. Like I mean,
absolutely.
It's just you've got. I mean, if you're gonna say dumb shit like that, then I got no response.
I got no response to you. It's just me as somebody who doesn't pay attention to it, looking at it just real quick, not being in depth on it. That's where I come from. That being said, you can make the same argument towards me about Alabama, but I want Mac Jones with the Patriots. So go ahead, lay it into me.
Yeah, listen, no, I already said that. I mean, I think Mac Jones is the number 2 quarterback right now at this moment, the way he's playing. Now, obviously, that could change if Justin Fields has some great performances, but I don't see it. I don't see him fixing some of those issues he showed the last 4 or 5 weeks. But you're right. I'll agree with that. Mac Jones right now does look really good.
Sweet. Yeah, I'm kind of in the same camp. I mean, I'm not the biggest believer in Ohio State quarterbacks either, but I still think irregardless of, I don't even know if that's a word, but irregardless of the fact of what happens tonight, what the outcome is, I still think he'll probably be the number 2 quarterback off the board. I just don't think he's going to go to the Jets. But Zach Wilson, I think he's probably at the number 3 spot at that point, and then everything else falls into place. And I think not Zach Wilson, but Trey Lance may be on the outside looking in just because we haven't had that much of a sample size from him in the one game that he did play this year. He didn't really look particularly great from what I saw in highlights, and I know a lot can be said about, reading the box score doesn't say the same as what the game flow was, but if you just look at the box score and the highlights, he didn't particularly light up the stat sheet. So at that point, you're just taking him on his potential, and I think he could probably be a second-round pick at that point. But
and
a lot of arguments can be made for Alabama and Ohio State. I mean, I've been on this podcast saying for the longest time that I wasn't a fan. Even as a Dolphins fan, I wasn't that high on Tua being taken at number 5 just because the only quarterback that ever succeeded in the NFL from Alabama was Joe Willie Namath, and that was in the 70s.
Yep.
So that's where I fall with Alabama quarterbacks.
And since we're on the topic, Adam Schefter tweeted out that BYU quarterback Zach Wilson officially announced he's declaring for the 2021 NFL Draft. So obviously no surprise there, but now it's official that he's going to be in the NFL Draft.
Oh, look at that! Hopefully, he ain't Mansell 2.0.
There's some rumblings about that, man. There's some serious questions about his off the field issues. Now, the one guy that nobody's talking about, but Sam Ehlinger out of Texas, he kind of fell off because Texas had a bad year. He's a quarterback for those guys. He was like a Heisman hopeful before the year started, but because of just how bad Texas was, he kind of fell off the map. I do like Sam Ehlinger's body type. He's a fairly big guy. He's fairly muscular. He's fairly tall. He has a strong arm. There's some issues with his accuracy at times. But other than that, I think he is a very, very good leader. He has some great intangibles. He's a guy that whoever ends up with Sam Ehlinger is going to be happy with. He's the kind of guy that's going to Jalen Hurts to the draft, where you can probably get him later on in day 2 maybe, but he'll do some wonders for you if you let him develop a little bit.
You take him over Kellen Mond out of A&M?
You know what? I think I will. I think I will. I do like Ehlinger's intangibles way more than Kellen's out of A&M.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think it's close. I might lean a little bit more Mond out of those two, but again, that might just be because of where A&M ranks in the rankings compared to Texas. And I'm not the biggest Texas fan in the first place.
Yeah, and that's the reason why Sam Ehlinger is going to be an absolute steal for somebody in the draft, because those guys imploded this year. Texas was going to be one of those teams that had playoff, hopes this year, and Ehlinger was a high Heisman odds favorite as well. So somebody's going to find him deep in the draft, and they're going to find a steal. And when I mean deep, it's like a second or third rounder is deep for a quarterback.
All right, sweet. Put it on the board. We'll do early draft prep and some little insider bets at this point. But on that note, if you guys are good, I'm just going to plug it up.
Go for it.
Giddy up.
All right, sweet. All right, so this episode and previous ones of the Pro Football Radio podcast can be found on Spotify, SoundCloud, Google Play, Google Podcast, Stitcher, YouTube under Pro Football Radio Podcast, social media wise, Facebook and Instagram at Pro Football Radio Podcast, Twitter at PFR Podcast. I'm on the Twitter machine, Brando_Puma, J Chima's at J Chima. Our senior insider, senior contributor, Eric Burgess, aka The Burge, is on the Twitter machine at Burge the Goalie. Like, subscribe, download, hit us up on social media. I believe all of our DMs are open. If you want to send us a private message and hopefully no dick pics, you can do that as well too.
Extra dick pics.
Otherwise, we're going to be going into the off season pretty soon. Never thought we'd say this, but the playoffs are right around the corner, and we're going to need some off season filler at this point. So if you have any questions, want to do a little mailbag, we try to bring it back as much as I've said it over the year. Definitely can do that. We want to tailor this show towards you guys, so definitely hit us up.
Awesome. Well, listen, that's all I got. We'll talk to you guys next week.
Via con Dios. Real quick, I got to hit Freddie with something real quick. Freddie Soliotis, you're fired!
Nice. It gets better every time.
Oh, yes.
See you guys.
Peace.